bachelor's, master's degree. I used to work with grades pre-K through 8th grade in some form or fashion, as we all have probably throughout the years. When I first started working with iPad integration, I was working as a TA for severe autism nonverbal students, special ed classrooms, and we used it as a communication device and try to use as a reward system as well. Then I went to the district office in Tennessee and worked with rolling iPads out for the entire county. The 6th grade was the grade that we started with, and we built on as years went. Then I moved back to Burlington and taught 2nd grade classroom for a year, and I was in a pilot classroom for iPad 1-to-1 integration. And it was a Title I school. We were funded money for the initial start. We did not have cases, which was kind of scary. The first cart we received did not charge or sync, so we sent that back, and it was kind of a mess at first, but me and then followed by my other 2nd grade colleagues, we kind of worked out the kinks, and then I started doing the conferences with Franklin Academy. Now I'm teaching at Thales Academy, which is Franklin Academy's sister school. It's in North Raleigh, and I teach 2nd grade as well there. We do, each teacher has an iPad, and then we have a cart for travel. So I've seen 1-to-1 iPad integration, and I've also seen a cart for the school or just a teacher iPad. So I can kind of help you out with maybe a little bit of all three sides. So today, I always like to start off with the foundation of iPad integration. I know some of you, raise your hand if this is your first time ever using an iPad. You're starting out this year. Okay. 1 year of experience, 2, 3, done in a while. Alright, that's good. So we got a little mixture. So we kind of covered it all. The foundation is really your management. It's how you are going to push out iPads and the procedures that you're going to use in your classroom to make sure that it's done effectively. The biggest tip that I can give you is to reflect, as all educators would say. Key, but it's so true. You can identify what was successful and what did not work, and kind of cross it over for different subjects. So maybe something that worked in math, that same strategy that you used in there, you can carry over for science and history. Prior to implementing, which is this side of it, you really want to determine when and where your students are going to use the iPads. Develop a procedure for going and getting the iPads and returning them back to the iPad cart. Collecting student work is something you want to think about. Usually, most iPad apps provide an email link that you can send directly to the teacher. You will have to have email on each of your iPad though. So something to think about. Also, Dropbox and Edmodo. Edmodo is a great tool. We'll use for this conference. If you need our Edmodo code, it's in the packet for mine. On that page, you'll see 2 Symbaloo presentations. Symbaloo is just a resource link. It's like a big bank of URL links that will take you directly to where you can download that app. Super easy. I just took all the hard work of searching for each app for you, and you can just click it and send it. You can also send it as the desktop of your computer or your iPad, so that if you want students to download it, it's free. Of course, we can buy a bunch of apps, but you can just click it.
I did not hear what you said. The name of that was. Did you repeat that?
Symbaloo. It's on the actual Edmodo page. There's 4 links on the Edmodo page for mine. 2 of them are Symbaloo. The first one, the page 1, is teacher resources and more reading and creation. The second page is math, science, and history. Okay? So they'll make it super easy, and you click it, it's going to take you directly there. It's called a web mix, which is just that image. And you can create accounts and save it to your actual desktop. And then the other 2 is this presentation, and then the one that I'll be doing tomorrow. This one's kind of more of a management, some apps and content connection, but tomorrow is really how we get into what standards that you can link possibly with iPad apps. So that's kind of how you're collecting student work through email and Dropbox, some Edmodo, of course. Accountability with iPads. A lot of times I have seen iPads being used as just more of a time filler, which is not what you want to do with iPads. But teachers always ask me, well, how do you make sure that the students are doing what they're supposed to be doing? I know with the product app, they're creating something, so you receive an actual product, but what about for concept development, things that are working on target skills? You'll use accountability sheets, and I have plenty of examples that will go through specific to that. When you start out, you want to start out with small groups to make sure that your boundaries are set. You don't want to just hand them all out because it's going to be chaos. I went through that. And so, learn from my mistakes. Also, you need to decide who's going to upload your apps and synchronize everything. If it's going to be the teacher or tech facilitator. At my first school that I worked with, it was a tech facilitator's job. But as you know, they're running around school all day teaching other classes, and it can get a little overwhelming for them. So it's much easier for teachers to do it, having them set up individual accounts for whichever iPad. Now, of course, in our situation, our tech facilitator is the one in charge of the class. We only have one. So if you're doing one-to-one, I would want the teacher to be in charge. Let's see. You need to decide where the iPad is going to be when it's not being used and not in the cart. Sometimes you can have spots around the room, and I'll share with you some quick tips for that as well. And then last but not least, make sure that your school, I know a lot of them have firewalls, especially if it's a bigger county. Sometimes the firewall can prevent certain apps features, you know, especially with collecting data and collecting work. So just be aware. You might want to talk to your department, technology department, to make sure that nothing prevents that. And then, of course, can the iPad card actually charge? Because when you get that, if it doesn't, you're going to have a mess. So just something to think about. Some real quick tips for just initially starting. Make sure you label your carts and devices. iPads and most apps are supposed to be used for a single user. I mean, that's what the intent is. And a lot of apps will give data over time of what the student does. And so you want to make sure that if it's their actual iPad one-to-one, that you can take the best way to do it is take their photo and then set it as the desktop and screensaver, so that whenever the students are like, I can't find my iPad, and then another student finds it, they can just press the button on the screen, they know whose it is. It's just saves you the time and effort. You can also put a number on it, you know, a piece of tape on the back if you really want to write it, but that's the easiest way. And then for student jobs, you always have a line leader, you always have I have a classroom greeter in my classroom, but an iPad technician. The first week I ever did this, I said, okay, everybody, go to the back room and put up your iPad. And it was like a train of students. But it took at least 30 minutes for them to all try to get up there and plug in. So I would suggest having 1 or 2 iPad technicians. Everybody will come back and drop their iPad off, and it's just real quick. They can just slide them in, plug them in. It'll save you probably 20 minutes. It's easy every day. So just a quick tip. As for storing devices and accessories with the iPad, the iPad itself is definitely beneficial, but a stylus, which you all received one hopefully today. If you're in kindergarten, pre-K, a lot of times you're tracing letters. Their fingers sometimes don't get recognized as easily with those tracing apps, but it is definitely beneficial and good to have. That's extra though, so if you don't have it, it's okay. As well as a case. The first iPads that I received in my last school, we had no cases, and I was like, you're crazy, giving 30 iPads to children with no cases. Luckily, I had none that broke. But the best case that I can provide and offer would be an OtterBox, just because it's really strong. You can adjust it and pop it up like it is on the screen, which will help with glare. And it's just, I think, product-wise, it's probably the best one to provide. Also, iPad card, we already talked about syncing. Depending on the case that you buy, though, these slots may be too small, because there's various iPad cards. The way around that, though, is every other slot you take out the metal insert so that it makes it bigger and you can actually fit everything in. So if you buy a cart and your cases don't fit, you can remove those slots and make it to an actual file. So keep that in mind. As also, a lot of times you'll lose cable clips. This is probably going to be something I buy for one of my teachers next door to me because she always has her cord flying around over there and loses it. These are called multi-purpose cable drop cords. They're clips, and they're really inexpensive. If you really want to get cheap, you can get that sticky putty that you put things up on the wall and mold it around. They do the same thing, and it's cheap. So something you can think about. I know that when I had, in my classroom in the past, I had iPad cart in my room and laptop carts, and the laptop cords were always out of there and falling in the back, and you have to go around and unplug everything. So this would have been definitely beneficial at that time. And then for storing the iPads around the room, if you only had it all in one cart, then you have 20 kids going up at one time trying to get it. So I'd have 3 or 4 of these around my room with individual slots for iPads. At the beginning of the week, I'd have them unplug the iPads and put them in there. The battery life on iPads are pretty lengthy. So in a day, you probably won't use the entire power. So have it stored, they can shut it off at the end of the day and turn it back on in the morning. And then it will save time and management as well. I used to use pod desks, so I'd have like 4 desks, and then this would be in the middle of it. And on top, I'd have like a basket with like pencils and crayons and markers. So it was easily accessible. Or another one, if you have a bookshelf, then you just put these in slots. Everyone usually has these files in their classroom for the teacher. It's just another way that you can use it for iPad integration. Or if you're in pre-K and kindergarten, receipts. It's quick and easy. Out of sight, out of mind for pre-K and kindergarten. So when they're not using it, it's behind them. They don't know the difference usually. So it's just a good way to keep it out of the way, safe, and quick for them to as well. As for having students move around with the iPad, when I was first here, actually as a participant, not a presenter, we talked about how to make kids become more active in the classroom and keep them up and moving. They're sitting in a seat for 7 hours a day. It's kind of ridiculous. So we were discussing how to mount iPads, and we were coming up with a couple different ideas. This is the one that Apple ended up coming up with. We were talking about having a flip folder where you slide it in. I was like, I'm not letting my kids with no cases slide their iPads. So I created an iPad stand of my own, setting at a 30-degree angle, and it's actually been painted since I had a 4th and 5th grade club that I was working with. It was like a community project, help giving back to your school. And so they actually painted it for me, and above it, you can't see it, but I would have whiteboards so they could work out problems as well. But you could have 2 or 3 kids, and this was for when I was doing centers. I wanted to have small groups working with me with reading, and I would rotate centers around. One of my centers would always be a skill, target skill, or a product on my iPad. So it's definitely something that you can use and integrate. This costs, I think, $20, $15. Huh? The top of it, where it's facing you, is actually plywood. It's real thin. It doesn't have to be. It took me an hour and a half to make this. Both of them. I made 2 of them. They're side by side. I built the little case and then I built the top for it. But the way it's braced is detachable. I can pull it on and off. It's just got washers on the edge which brace it in, and then a lip that I created just so that the iPad wouldn't slide off. So it's super easy. The back is just held up by a couple, I think it's like 5-inch braces. It's super good. And if you want to know more information about it, you can look at the image or I can send you some dimensions. And then actually studies, I think it's great. But one of the pre-K teachers, she was telling me about a way that she was displaying things for her classroom. Oh, never mind. It was actually Miss Kessler. So, I'll leave it there. So, did you find on Pinterest? Pinterest. I thought so. In my old school, we had document cameras, which help display images. At my new school, we only have Apple TVs and iPads, and this is the way around not having a document camera. Put the iPad on video and sit it on the top where it's facing down, like so, and then you can do things below. Another great way is if you're teaching kindergarten pre-K how to navigate through an iPad. Whenever you just display an image, they can't see what your hands are doing. So, like volume control, shutting down the power, finding the home screen, plugging in headphones, things like that. So, using this quick and easy solution, you can show them individually how to do it, and they're not all crowded over you. They can see it from far. So, this is PVC pipe with a few connections. $20. Who has like a yearbook club?
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah, maybe you. Yearbook club, or if you're uploading large video files or lots of different images for like throughout the school year. An iPad camera connection kit is something you might want to look into. It's not super expensive either. It plugs into your iPad. You can put an SD card or a USB cord and directly link it. iPad camera connection kit. So it's just quick and easy. You can pass it around your school and collect a lot of images, in a short amount of time. Whereas if you're uploading it through email, usually the file size is too big, especially when you're inputting video. So this is just a quick, easy tip for that. And then of course the Apple TV. Raise your hand if you have Apple TV at your school. Raise your hand if you're still using SmartBoard, which is not a problem because I used that for a long time. Oh, you're okay. They hooked it up. Yeah. So either one's fine. Either you're gonna have an Apple TV where you wirelessly display the image on the TV, which I like better because, especially with my math class, I have 27 kids, 26 now, and whenever I go around and work on skills, they can type in the problem themselves, and I can kind of flow. Whereas if I'm using a smartboard, then more than likely you're using a dongle.
Exactly.
A dongle is a VGA input, and you have to stand right beside it, and it's really touchy. Like if you wiggle that cord too much, then your image is gone, and it takes so long to reset. But you make do with what you got, especially in education. So just something to think about. And then, of course, you might think this is silly, but headphones. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of these games and apps have a lot of noise and sound, and think of that times 20, so then at the end of the day, you're going to feel like this, and then you're going to have to go immediately to the store and buy a bunch of these. So I really want you to think about investing in headphones. Christmas is coming around the corner. Parents are going to ask, what would you like for your classroom? Those little cheap headphones they can buy for $3 or $4, the small ones, they're easy to keep up with, they can store them in the desk. Have them donate those. Something quick and pretty inexpensive as well.
Do you prefer headphones over earbuds?
Some people, sanitation-wise, I would say headphones. Space-wise, earbuds. But students that have issues like auditory processing, like when I worked with special ed, sound issues, I would give them headphones because a lot of them are really sensitive to sound. So,
What I find is too, depending on the case you have.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be careful, and a lot of times, like OtterBoxes, they have like a flap that folds open, and if the OtterBoxes, they're okay, but some of the other cases are too thick, and yet they can't get a good enough connection. So you'd have to take it out. I have to do that with my cell phone all the time. Take it out of the case and plug in auxiliary cord. So just something to think about. I know that was a lot of just accessories and things, but that's your management. That's what's going to really drive the start, especially for y'all, and it will save you a lot of headaches. So planning ahead. My master's is a curriculum specialist, so I always try to do maps of curriculum. Always review your curriculum maps and Common Core content standards. Raise your hand if you're Common Core. Most everyone is. Some of us aren't. I know Franklin and Bailey's, we do direct instruction, but I used to work with Common Core all the time. And so look at your core objectives. Make sure the app is actually going for that target skill. Some of the apps, they're going to seem like they do, but they really don't. They're kind of tricky. They'll have a name or a tag whenever you're searching. It'll say fractions. And then the fraction part will be this big, and then there'll be a bunch of junk that goes along with it. So just really think about it. The Assembly pages that I upload really are very specific to a certain content standard. So that will help you. And I have some more that actually break it down that I can add later as well, some older pages. Prior to integrating iPads, implementing them in one subject area a week. I know that administrators specifically, a lot of times they buy all this technology and you say, oh, you use it all the time. And we put all this money invested into it, but that's not good integration in my opinion. So start with one a week and build, okay? I mean, there's no rush. You're gonna have it for how long? So start, make sure you get some good, you have some success with it, and really reflect on it before trying to throw it into science, history, math, and English all at once. Start with whatever subject, I would say start with whatever subject you feel the most comfortable with. Like I like math lots, and I always start with that first, and then build on science and history. Identify the core standards across grade levels as well. A lot of times, I'm a secondary teacher, we like to just look at our standards because that's what we're focusing on for the year. But when you're modifying instruction, you also have to look at, for me, first grade and third grade, because a lot of kids are not at the same exact level. I worked in Wilmington with an EC and ESL population, so we had a lot of different differences in where we were level-wise within my classroom. So there's apps for everything, and a lot of the settings on apps will help you modify, which we'll talk about, but just keep that in mind for future lessons that you teach. iPads provide students with concept development, so a target skill, and realize that reflection, of course, we were talking about is what's going to be the best key for 21st century integration in your classroom. And iPads, like all technology, is going to fail probably 100 times within the next year. So make sure you always have a backup plan. Just keep that in mind. iPads, for the most part, are pretty solid. Whenever you're going wirelessly, putting that on screens, though, and other things like that, it can get a little touchy. And there's always bugs and fixes that they're uploading, so update your iPad apps so they're fresh and ready to go. These two apps that I just found will also help you with the management of your lessons and resources. This is called lesson plans, is what it is, lesson plans, exactly. The great thing about it, though, is you can search for other people's folders and lessons that maybe relate to your standard, and it will also, you can actually email your lesson plan to other educators. So if you're out sick for a day and you want to integrate iPads and you have a lesson that you want to do, or any lesson in general, then you can email it directly to a colleague and they can give it to them for you. This would be similar to Dropbox. Raise your hand if you use Dropbox. Alright, so most of you are familiar with that. It's just a lesson plan. Yeah, and it's on the single page, I think the first one. So page one.
Does it convert over to the page? Is
It,
can we take it, what do you do drive?
you can take that information and copy it easily, yes. And the great thing is, it's kind of like Apple has the cloud, you put everything in the cloud, they have lesson plan cloud. So you can kind of keep up with all your stuff. And even if you're not with your iPad or with that app, you can go online and you get in the other way. Also, similar to Dropbox, is live binders. The great thing about live binders is you can have public and private binders that you share, and you can have a collaboration binder. So if you're in grade level, want to upload lessons together and have similar things, just like Dropbox. This is just another resource you can use, and you can also search other people's binders. It creates bookshelves, just like you would have in your classroom. And it's just a great way to keep everything organized in one spot so you don't have thousands of papers in a filing cabinet that you never look at. So this is just a quick way to have some extra resources. If you are just getting iPads, I'm sure the principal is going to say you need lesson plans to go along with your iPad. You need to see evidence of it being used. This is, I think, a really good action plan for iPad integration. It breaks it down into 5 different separate pages. Very similar to most action plans. It has a summary, you list your content standards, your 21st century skills, and whatever assessments you're going to use. The second page really focuses on your objectives and whatever prior knowledge is needed. So if you're doing modifications for students, this will kind of help you narrow that down. As well as tools and resources, content apps that you're going to use, URL links. A lot of times you'll use an app and then link directly back to maybe a video from BrainPop or something like that to kind of reinforce the skill. Any printed materials or other equipment and supplies. And then the last one, if your principal's like, well, I just need something quick and easy, this would be it. Just kind of breaks down the lesson by how long it's going to take, what assessments you're going to use, whatever the focus of the lesson is. It's really quick and easy. This is, I Google searched this actually. It's by a school in California, San Jose. So, and you can find it on there, the title, and just it'll pop up. I think it's like the second image on Google. It's really easy. And then you can do a breakdown of how many computers you need, what differentiation you're going to need to use, and then your final reflection. Done.
How did you search it? Did you say like iPad?
I will do this. I will, as soon as this is over, I will find it and upload it to you. So that you won't have to do any work. That's what I want. This should be, you shouldn't have to do anything except click. So I will find it and put it up there for you, okay? Because I know I have it on my in my files. PDF. In a staff meeting I did with technology, I was working with doing a conference for December, and we were talking about how technology can be used as a tool. And so we were trying to develop a community of tech-savvy people. And we were like, let's all get some ideas together that we can kind of incorporate and create a list so that if somebody's really working on problem solving or communication or information processing, they'll have some resources that they can go find. And so we sat down together and we listed some problem solving. So we were like, Screen Chomp or Edge Creations, we list some apps or some URL links. And it's just a quick way for you to analyze and see what you're using in your school system, and is it all just research or is it all professional development? Are you using any thinking tools like mind maps and things like that, or any web applications? So it kind of breaks it down and makes sure that it's an even playing field and that you're hitting all types of technology, not just one set. I can also upload this, so I'll do that.
Emma.
Anytime you go to a conference, they're like, oh, you should be using technology all the time. And there's an app for everything. Not an app for everything. So, just something to keep in mind. Make sure that you're using the iPad appropriately and not requiring things out of kids that you can't expect to actually have. So, misconceptions. Use it for every lesson. You shouldn't use it for every lesson. Some lessons need pen and paper. and that it's a time filler. It's not. There's some great things you can do with it, but you got to keep in mind what the purpose is. So we talk about accountability. How do you expect kids to do what you're asking them to do when they have this technology that can do tons and tons of different things? There's apps on there. They find a game that they love. They have another product that they're supposed to create. Of course, they're going to go to the games. This is what they want to do. So it's always good to have accountability attached with it. So we're talking about product versus concept development. I'm going to talk about, as a product, this is just a quick rubric that you can give your teachers. It kind of is really broad. It talks about, is the content concise and clear? Is the process or the layout appealing? And is the graphics something that you would like as well? So just 4, 3, 2, 1 on EOG test scores. Super easy. I'll upload this as well. It's just a way to keep track of what students are doing in terms of product. As in terms of accountability and concept development, this is called Mad Math. It's a flashcard app. It does addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You can annotate with your finger on this white card, so you don't need an extra piece of paper necessarily to work out the problem. It will become bigger. It does levels. Students love levels. That's why Angry Birds is so popular, because they get to go through all these different levels and see if they can beat the score. It times them. It gives like you can set it to however many questions you want per level. In this instance, there's 10 questions per level. We're on problem number 1. You can adjust it to numbers within 1 to 12. You can adjust it to double digits or triple digits. So it's super easy. You can modify it and customize it to whichever student. When I had it, I had students that were EC. I was letting them work on numbers 1 to 12 because that's what they really need to work on. And I had some students that were pushing into AHG. They were doing triple digit stuff within the same classroom at the same time in separate centers of the room. So it was just quick, short, fast. Now, to make sure that they are actually learning the information and doing it correctly, you have accountability sheets. Just like you do time test on addition. This is just the same thing. I know it's kind of faded. It just has, I think, 20 or 30 problems. I threw it up there. This is numbers 1 through 12, addition and subtraction. This would be double digit, addition and subtraction, followed by, of course, triple digits. So I'd have these around the room in a bin and say, I think they were colored bins like red, green, blue. Say the green group, I knew who they were. You grab an accountability sheet, work on Mad Math. I taught them how to set the settings to 12. They picked it up pretty quick. They're tech savvy at this age. So Mad Math, probably one of my favorite flashcard apps when it comes to numbers and operations. Super easy.
So look back 1 second.
Yeah.
So basically, they had to turn in this sheet, which was these problems would come up during the course of their run.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and you can customize it however much you want to. So I would have that sheet and I would make a couple different variations so it wasn't the same on every day. So for a week, I would say we're working on Mad Math, and every day they would put in that sheet, and I could check. I would spot check because I wouldn't get through every single one. I would spot check, maybe 13 problems out of each page, and just to make sure that they were either regrouping, because a lot of it is double subtraction. It's going to require regrouping, and that was the skill that I was checking them on, which they didn't know I was checking them on. So you get kind of sneaky with it, but yeah, it was just a way for me to make sure that they were using the technology correctly, working on the target skills I gave them, and then if the principal came by and said, okay, are they just sitting on an iPad playing around, I'd say, no, here's all the sheets that they just did. And it was, the great thing about technology, especially too, is time-wise, they actually do more problems within that time frame than they would pencil and paper. Because it's active, it's really active, it gives them, it tells them if it's right or wrong. So it'll give them like a ding. So that it's like quick assessment and instant gratification as well. So it's a pretty neat little way to integrate things as well as for math. I'm going to talk about mainly for the next 3, and then we'll go into some literature. So this is called Cookie Factory. It deals with place value. You can, I know that this is 300 times 5, and they have to actually figure out the place value, and then add up. They're shipping cookies to like it's like a distribution center. So at the bottom row, they would click if they need ones. Tens is the stacks. So base 10 blocks, bits, 10 bits, sticks, and blocks. And then the boxes are the boxes. So it's a way of taking a math concept that we've all used in elementary education and putting it in a different output. So for my kids, what my accountability sheet would be for this is like so. The first 4 would have just a number, and it would be 763. It's kind of like they would make it an expanded form. And then on the end of the side, it would be base 10, so they would have to draw it out. The next 6 through 10 problems, it's from the game, so they have to think of what was in the game, which ones, and then they create their own at the bottom. So it's kind of like I do, we do from the game, and then you do on your own. So,
You made up the sheet yourself.
yeah. So, and if you want these, I'll just upload them all. Like, you don't have to do work, or you can have some examples. That's a quick game for just place value. You can customize it as well. You can make it numbers, just ones and tens, bits and sticks, or you can do all 3 place values. And the paid version, you can actually do multiplication and division as well, and make that into place value. So it's pretty neat. As for one more numbers and operations game for today, this is called Mathmateer. Has anybody ever seen Mathmateer? If you've used an iPad, some of you might have seen it. Kids love this game. You can set it to addition, subtraction, multiplication, division again. But when their ship goes off into space at the end of the round, they have to identify coins. They have to identify shapes. And the more money that they earn from doing the problems, they get to customize the rocket ships. So it's kind of like a creation ad as well as education. And just like when you do 80 birds, after you get to so many levels, you get more birds that have different powers. Well, you get more accessories on your rocket to make it go farther, and it shoots off, and they see how far they can make their ships go, how many miles. So
now with these apps that like track and like build and stuff,
yeah.
I understand the use of the accountability worksheet. I have 31 kids, but I only have 15 iPads, and I have some computers and stuff too, so like we do other things, but the accountability sheet would come into play with the not enough iPads, but then the ones that track, is there like some way to like say reset after a certain amount of plays?
Well, the great thing about this app and most apps, you can make user profiles. So I can make a profile just for one kid here. I've never had an issue with it. You can upload, I think, 10 to 12 or 15 different profiles. So for me, I only have one iPad in my classroom unless I take out the cart. Well, if I want to give a student to work on a skill, he can go click his profile and then can go off from there. And then he has his own rocket, nobody knows his rocket. I'm not worried about fighting. Everything's separate. So, and most apps that I give you have their own user profile. The Place Value Cookie Factory, I think you can't do as many profiles, or as you can with Mathmateer, but Place Value is very specific. This has a lot more applications. Yeah, and so they're also earning money, so you can talk about, well, money we use, money for you buy. So you're actually doing a couple different content areas within math, or concepts within math at one time. And this is what the accountability sheet would look like for it. It's just really just empty blocks, and then they actually work out. The top has a direction. I know you can't read it. It says, click on Mathmateer game. Type create player, then click play. You create your new rocket. When you get to the screen, you press the money symbol. It takes you to where you choose addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. In this case, I was just using addition and subtraction. Select the level. You can make it easy, medium, and hard. So depending on where the student is, you can tell them easy, medium, or hard. And then they would solve a few problems in the space below to record the answer. And then you can actually have them, if they get it right, put a check, and if they get it wrong, put a circle in the way that they know if they got it right, the rocket goes up in the air and blasts off. If they're wrong, it falls down to earth. So it's a quick, easy assessment. It checks them, and you can have them if they, I would say, if you got it wrong, I want you to turn it back and try again. See where, if you can find your error in the problem. Now, we talked about place value, multiplication, division, numbers, and operations for math. Let's focus on literature. The first questions I've ever received are, okay, what are some good apps with books? And you know, a lot of the apps will have, most of them cost money, stinks. And most of them also have limits that you can do. Well, the way around this one, this is like the Netflix of books. Just like you go on Netflix, it comes up, it has different worlds that you can't really see in the background, but it has fairy tales, it has fables, because you teach fables, fantasy, adventure, animal kingdoms, all these different content, different types of content that they can look at and read about. The paid version gives you access to everything. The free version gives you one book a day. The way around this is with 20 iPads, that's technically 20 books. Yeah. So what you do is have a student choose a book that they would like to read. They can either do it with a friend or by themselves. Then if you still have extra time, switch with a buddy. Read the book that they read. Then you can talk about it, compare it, communicate. So I'm not sure far is probably not me because I figured out a way around their scheme, but the accountability sheet that I would use for this is called Lucky Questions. It's a game. You give them a die and they have to answer questions if it's nonfiction or fiction. So they would roll the die. They would have this blank sheet with the boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have to identify if the book is, let's say it's nonfiction. They roll a 2. They have to tell me a new word that they learned from the book. If it's a 6, tell me about your favorite part of the book. 1, tell me an important fact that you learned from the book because it's nonfiction, so there have to be facts within it. Number 3, why do you think this book is important for us to read? And 4, tell about the connection you made to your reading. Text, self, world. Sound familiar? So nonfiction, that's what that would look like, and they would answer the questions within that blank sheet. If you were working with fictions, the questions tend to be a little different. Name your favorite character and why. You tell me the setting of the story, tell me about the beginning of the story, tell me about the end of the story, favorite part of the story and why, and then how did the story make you feel? So it's still going back and having to evaluate not only what's in the text, but how you feel as a reader. So this is like a game that you can play and still get some reading in place as well. In terms of also reading fluency checkouts, we all do. K-12 timed reading, it's on page 1 of the assembly page, just like all the rest of them are for this presentation. It gives you multiple prompts that you have to read, and students will time themselves and see, they can actually record themselves read as well, and see how well they read. The accountability for this, especially like pre-K and kindergarten, students that have a hard time necessarily reading all of these directions. Second, third, fourth, they can kind of follow this. It kind of gives them an outline. I got this off of Teachers Pay Teachers. Fluency Timer Pro. This is the Fluency Timer Pro. I use K-12 reading. Same thing. They click the app, they record their first name and last name, label their recording. They can do it in the email and email it to you so that you have some record of them reading. Or on the back, what it would say is, how did you do? So you're evaluating yourself, you're using Bloom's taxonomy, shorthand. You would say, is it a natural speaking rate? Do you recognize that there's punctuation, there's spacing in between? You color it yellow. Or is it towards the end, you read word by word, it's really choppy and chunky, you don't use any punctuation. The bottom side will actually be just your expression, you use inflection. Does it sound like someone is excited to hear you read? You know, how do you evaluate yourself? And it's good to not always have our judgments put on their reading, because a lot of the readers that I worked with, they're very self-conscious about reading. it's good for them to also rate themselves and rate others, have peers rate them. So this is just a quick tool that you can use for K-12 time reading. And it will keep track of how long they read within a minute. So if you say, I want you to see if you can do this time this week, okay? I don't want you, it's okay if you don't, but today, let's try to do it within a week. And so they get practice. And it's okay to reread. I tell my kids that all the time. Rereading is always a good thing. So when we talk about reading, also we talk about writing. This is just a cursive app. You choose a letter that you know, practice that letter, watch the video, trace and practice it again. This would be for third grade now, kind of for us working on it. They also have just regular print for pre-K and kindergarten as well. On the back, it would look like just a regular old writing sheet. Just get practice and continue writing. But the app kind of helps them ensure that they're getting practice. This is where the stylus comes in. Especially kindergarten, first grade, kindergarten, and pre-K, their hands, like the muscles within their hands, are really working on grip and things like that. Special ed students especially would benefit from stylus. It's good to have them practice, holding the pencil and writing. So that would be my suggestion for that.
What was that?
That's cursive app. So yeah, cursive app. There's trace print apps, ABC apps. ABC is kind of like the people that make a lot of writing print apps. And I'll just upload all these, and you'll have them, and you won't have to worry about transfer. If you're working with history, geography specifically, they have a contents app. I'm going to share with you one tomorrow. It's called Tap Quiz Map. Tap Quiz Map. And it actually does the world and regions and kind of gets really specific. You can use the same premise for this. You choose continents, you learn and practice them many times, play the game. After you play the game enough and practice it, you take a test on it, you screenshot it, you teach them how to screenshot. Screenshot is home key in the power button. It'll take a photo, you can email it directly to your account, you can put them in a Dropbox folder, and have them for later. Pretty simple. And on the back, if you want something that necessarily you don't have to email, an accountability sheet, they would just like this. You'd label the number in front of whichever comment it is. So after they get practice, they would actually take a mini quiz. I would, maybe at the beginning of the week, it's just for fun, see if you do. By the end of the week, the last accountability sheet is your grade. So we talked now numbers and operations, place value, reading, fluency, some history apps, and writing. Let's talk about just basic instruction 101, kind of your cheat sheet. So I know some of these PDFs are a little wordy, and it might be a little too much to take in at one time. So if you're just doing a basic template, this is what I usually use. Just identify objectives, have a pre-assessment, maybe give that accountability sheet before they practice. That's your pre-assessment. Work on an individual skill, or with a small group, or by themselves, or with a partner, or a whole group. And then they review them or make the product and have to do their full assessment. Excuse me. As for selecting iPad and iPod apps, there's kind of, this is just a rubric of help you narrow down what specifically it is. Is it a good app? Is it something that you actually want to use in your classroom? So you look at curriculum connection, authenticity, feedback, if there's differentiation, which is going to be in your settings button of your app. Followed by, is it user-friendly, especially with regards to pre-K? Can they navigate that quickly? And is there student motivation? Is there some type of reward inside the game that they can, like for math and tier, they get rockets, so their reward is getting different pieces. For, when we talked about mad math with numbers and operations, it gives like a little sound, like a ding. So So student motivation, and then the last one, we'll see, but it's talking about is data easily accessible? So like when you take screenshots, can you email it, or does the app itself allow you to email the teacher directly? So this is just a 4021 rubric, just if you're unsure, especially when you come to like purchasing apps, I would say use this so that you don't spend hundreds of dollars on an app that you really, it doesn't have user friendliness, or at least doesn't have any data that you can gain from it. And then if you're talking about consuming, collaborating, producing, these are just some small little excerpts of things that you could use. A few of these, some of my favorites personally, because some of these do not relate all to elementary. We will discuss tomorrow when we talk about and today's on like Sketch. We'll talk about and Prezi. This is a Prezi. If you've never used a Prezi, it's just a presentation tool that you can use. It's a little bit more engaging than a PowerPoint, personally. Pinterest. If you're in education, you should have a Pinterest account. Because I guarantee you, anything iPad related is on Pinterest too. One-to-one, traveling with cards. A lot of these PDFs that I've pulled off of go from Pinterest, and most of them are free. So something you can think of and add. Khan Academy we'll talk about in a little bit, specific to math and Mobo. Now Twitter, I doubt elementary kids are using Twitter, so Downcast goes from the Scorify, goes that upper grades. So thinking outside the box. That's a lot of 10, 22 comments. Very. Thinking outside the box. Ways to use the iPad in the classroom in a different way than the app is actually meant for. Every time I come to one of these conferences and I talk to Mr. Mahaley and Tim Hall, they're like, oh, you should try out this app. And then I try to tweak it in a way that they've never done it, and then use it and bring it back to them. So with your partner, real quick, because there's always some type of interactive thing we do at conferences, just talk about different ways that you can integrate iPads in your classroom, like whole group, small group. I'll start with that. I'll give you a minute. See if you talk. 5 ways. Hey, how about 0? I know how it is. It's hard whenever you're in a conference. Here are some of the ways that I came up with it. They're broad, but just a few ways. Whole group, small group, independent instruction, independent practice, because there's a difference. Sometimes you have a video, we were just talking about a fraction video that taught kids about cutting fractions in half and showing different parts of a whole. Independent practice, which would be the accountability sheets and concept development tasks. Creating and producing, researching information, read, speech, writing development. There's some really cool speech apps. Language development as well. Test remediation, video support. This is by far, I like to think I came up with it. I hope I did. If I didn't, then oh well. Take credit. So every Friday you get a spelling test, right? And there's always one kid who does not show up for that spelling test. And you have to stand there, and then the next month you come in and you're like, okay, I gotta make sure John gets this video, and I'm gonna have to take my time from the lesson with all the whole group to worry about that. So what I do is I go to the video with my iPod. I record myself giving the test. When they first come in Monday morning, I give them my iPad and a headphone and a spelling test sheet. They go to the back room, they take the test while they do the journal. I don't know if I came up with it, but I'm taking it. But I used to do foundations at my old school. It's similar to spelling test. It does like grammar test, and it's all anything that you have to give oral instructions for them to take a test. Record it, because either you can upload it to a web page, a private web page, and just pull it off. The other week I was taking kids to recess, and I had to give a spelling test, and my other educator was next door, and I said, okay. I'm going to leave this door open. I'm going to plug my iPod, put my iPad to the spelling test and just throw it up on the Apple TV. I'm going to go out with the kids to recess. I was like, when they're done, they'll put it on my desk and then we'll come outside. She said, okay, press play. I went out. They were quiet. They took the test by themselves. They came down with me to recess. So it's just quick, easy. It doesn't take away from your day. It can be individual instruction for people that have auditory processing skills, because if they have the iPad by themselves, they can reverse back and hear the word again. Hear the sentence again, make sure they understand the context of it. So it really gives flexibility. And that's what we want with iPad integration. Skype with peers or other educators or people across the world. Emailing and networking. Behavior management tool. I'll show you an awesome app for that here in a minute. Collecting data. Presentation tool like Prezi's and other items like that. Painting and drawing. Whiteboards. They have those as well, EduCreations. Formative assessment, scanning QR codes, which we'll talk about. Student accountability, we've already talked. Flashcard app practice, we talked a little bit. Sharing information in classwork, videos, and games. So there's plenty of things, plenty of uses. As you know, toilet paper is not there. So just something to think about when you are trying to think out of the box. Creations app. It's pretty much I'm sorry. To take problems. Here's an example of one student. She works on a problem. She messed up, so she's going to start over. It's pretty simple and very user-friendly. The problem that I gave them are posted around the room, and I just circled which number it is, so 1 through 8. When they save it, they're just going to use their name and whatever number is circled on the sheet, so they know which problem it is. And I've used a timer to kind of help the transition. I give them about 2 minutes and 40 seconds for each problem. When they're done, they stand up and walk to the next station. Alright, so I know that video sucks. I tried for way too long. I'll see it. Anyways, I know it's sideways, but it doesn't matter. The point is, this is called using them all. Alright, so you have problems posted around the room. I had 8 of them on a sheet of paper. And I went to EduCreations, and what they would do is they would record the problem themselves, and it will listen to them all, like as they speak, and they press record, and they can annotate on the screen just like this. So they work out the problem. And I put a timer on my smartboard for 2 minutes and 40 seconds, like I said. After the timer went off, they rotated, so it's like small group sitters, real quick. At the end, I would have them. What they did, they can save it. and label it number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just add a page at the bottom of the screen that says duplicate page, duplicate ink, or you can press the one beside it to the left, which has a little flap down, and give you line paper, graph paper, coordinate grids. I'm going to add a new one, so it'll be a brand new page. You can input images as well and text. So if you're maybe creating a little storybook, you can do that. Pre-K, they have a hard time typing all that stuff out, so you can say, I want you to just take photos of the setting. Find photos in the book of the setting, take a photo of it, and implement it to education.
Do you mind backing up and starting with what program you were using? And you had a sticky note with the problem, is that right? So they were
It was like just a white blank sheet of paper. The program's called Edu Creations, EDU Creations. It's just an interactive whiteboard. There's tons of different versions. Some people use Screenshot, which I'll show you a video of that. And I always use Edu Creations because it was just really easy, and my kids picked it up. I taught that was day 2 of Edu Creations. The first day I did like a little demo, and I talked about, okay, this is how it works. This is how you save video and content on it. And then when you save it, press done, discard, but it'll come out. Here's, I actually still have it. The video, you just click it, and it pops up. And so they record it. And what I would do for my students that were, after they'd done all the problems, just to see if they did it right, I would say, okay guys, I want you to pull up the video, scroll to the very end. I want you to leave it paused. Okay, we're going to say correlate what the answer is that you got and make sure that everyone got the same thing. And then you get snapped. And I did it in pairs too, so it kind of helps for the students that are struggling. When I do, this is like triple digit subtraction, which we're grouping. I would say, there's like a saying that I say, it's more on top, no need to stop. More on the floor, go next door. So they're having to go next door and get it. And it's quick and easy. The problem with anything like that, which is like a little saying, it takes practice. And you need to do it over and over so that they get in the habit of doing those steps. Because a lot of times they want to jump to the hubby's place. Well, you can't jump all the way over there. Go next door. It's not next door. It's 2 doors over. So I would have them practice this and recording it, hear themselves again. So within 2 minutes and 40 seconds, they should be able to work out the problem, save it, listen to it again, and make sure that they follow the steps. So it's just quick assessment. At the end, we go through and just check over and make sure that all the problems were together. And they could email this or send it to me or screenshot it. They want to just get the answer of the problem, the answer of the problem. So there's a couple of ways that you can do it, but besides the video being sideways, it was really helpful. Museum walks you can use. You can also, Ms. Kessler, she'll make QR codes with the answer, and she'll attach it to the page. So if they want to work out the problem and they don't want to do all of Edu Creations, then they can actually scan the QR code and see if the answer is correct after they figure it out. So that's another way to do it. So, speaking of QR codes, the basics. QR reader is what I use for reading QR codes. There's a couple of different versions. It's free though. You can link students directly to any website with QRs. I usually have outside of my door at my old school, I had like my name and then a QR code that linked to my direct web page. So when parents came by and they're like, so what are you doing in your classroom, or what's on the school calendar, they could just scan it and have it ready to go on their iPhone or Android. Research information. You can create a scavenger hunt around your classroom, especially the first week of school, and have QR codes that they have hidden around, maybe explaining as like a little tutorial video about the library, the rules and procedures for library time, and then later on, if kids are not doing what they're supposed to, you can say, oh, go scan that QR code again, make sure that you're following those rules. So that, or maybe bins that have labels on them, crayons, markers, books, things like that. So that's another way you can do that. You can link to your email address as well. Have students check your answers. You can vote on Twitter tools if you're upper ed. All right. You can advertise events, things like that. You can share student work. Differentiation for lessons, like let's say that you want to show a tutorial video for some of the students, but other ones that you can practice. Have some scan for videos and others scan for practice. You can also have the teacher bio, like I said, on your door. Create a graph tool to collect data. Virtual tours of your school. Like when you have open house, you have different ones and they explain to the parents how often they come to the library and all those questions that they have that you don't want to answer 100,000 times. So that would be a quick way to do it. And you can link to resources like Tumble Books, which is kind of like the Netflix of books that you buy as well. So kids in the center, they're going to continually do Tumble Books all the time. There's not an app for it that they can just click and go. Instead of them typing it all in, they can go hit a QR code, take them to the home page. Super easy.
Do you have a recommended QR generator?
I use QR stuff is what she used, and I used a new one the other day that I tried out. It was like KZ codes or something like that. Yeah, they're all about the same. It all depends on your preference. Some of them have better links to, like, if you're doing videos and things like that. QR stuff works a lot for her, and it has a lot of embedded information as well. Like, if you have questions and concerns, whereas I think the KY thing that I was using didn't have it, so I'll probably get back to it. This is actually what Ms. Kessler did. She had QR codes around the room, and she did a museum walk where they were scanning things. And this actually linked to.
This is from Teachers Pay Teachers. It's a free one.
Oh,
we scanned it with a QR reader.
Yeah.
And it was a map.
Math one. Here's some of the ones that I've used already, which I also got from Teachers Pay Teachers, like 3-digit addition and subtraction. Or you could do for the younger kids, the dominoes addition, adding together dice. Or money, all the same. There's different variations. You can customize your own, but most of the things nowadays, because QR has been around, you can actually find it online for usually free. Pinterest. This one, I'm going to pause for a second. Puppet Pals. Anybody use Puppet Pals? There's 2 of them now. It's upgraded. The free one, though, has I think 10 characters. So you're creating stories. This student was recreating Cinderella. So, and they can move around too, the images move. But the one that we used, she was actually recreating the story, and for some reason, the episode, I think towards the end of it, there would be like a monster that came out. There's different ones, you can find them online. It's super easy to use. It's like it's just like having a little puppet show. But it's great for kind of like recreating stories, because you have to do that Common Core, and linking stories and comparing stories. So I would have them do a Puppet Pal video. They can create their own, or they can recreate another story. Tell me the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Simple enough. They can tell me the character setting, the problem and solution. Or they could watch someone else's story and list it for them, so make sure that they are holding other students accountable. And then this would be you can take that, and I'm going to link 2 apps for you. So you have Puppet Pals where you display your video or your story that you did. And this is a book retail. So Puppet Pals, you make it, and then Puppet Lite, you're going to actually mind map it. So this is super easy. You can input pictures within these as well. So for pre-K and kindergarten, people that can't type very well or spell very well, they can actually just take a screenshot of the video or of the book that they have and input it. And so what I would do is the black box is the title. The solution would be the blue box, and you can set it. It's super easy. You just press the color that you want the box to be. Characters was orange, and green was setting. Or if you want to go into a little bit more detail for some upper grades, they can get a little bit more like be very specific of the characters, stepmothers, and things like that. All the settings, palace, house, kitchen, bedroom, outside on the road whenever they're traveling in the carriage. Fairy godmother, we just manage. This is problem and solution. So this is character setting, problem and solution. Pop-It Light's probably one of my favorite mind maps. It's super simple. There's some different ones that you would use. Like this one, I love Inspiration Light as well because it has a lot of templates. This would probably be for third, fourth, second through fifth grade. Everything comes up like this. You just fill in the blocks. So I did similarities. There's a story Cinderella, and then there's Cinder Edna. You remember Cinder Edna? About the witch, and then she has some different things. So the differences for Cinderella is there's a glass slipper, a fairy godmother, and she is beautiful, whereas Cinder Edna, her shoes were loafers. She bought her dress for the ball instead of the fairy godmother giving it to her, and that she wasn't very beautiful. But then you also list the similarities. Also tell you one thing about this before we move on. Inspiration Light. There's so many different ones you can do. Biographies, book or film comparisons, plot analysis, anything from persuasive essays, so templates for that. History they have for time periods or classification for science. For us, some things you're not going to be able to use for middle school, but cause and effect you can definitely use. The cycle diagram for like when you're doing the weather cycle. And I had it on before. It was vocabulary. So you just click the template, use the template, it pops up, you click the box, double click it, type it in. So you have your word concept and how it connects to the lesson. Fifth grade, there's a lot more lengthier words that they'll use for science compared to like kindergarten first. So this would be a great tool. It's pretty easy. You can email it to. You can't save photos to it though. This is the free one, but most of the time you're just trying to get words on paper. That's really what you want. And it's easy to edit, but you can't email it. So if you just want to check your students' work and make sure that they are at least comprehending what is being said in the science lesson or history lesson, it's just a quick and easy way that you can do it. You can also change it if you want more of a outline for maybe your content instead of having a big mind map, just have like notes for it. Same thing. So Inspiration Light. Fantastic app. Definitely good. And I threw this up here because I'm about to talk about self-reliance in children. Self-reliance in children. Students set goals. We want students to set goals and we want them to take accountability for their goals. So I did this for a conference, a lay conference a couple of weeks back. Using Pop-It Light, you can set behavior goals, spelling goals, reading goals for AR, so 1 point a week, history goals, or a point for the track, or however many you want to do and set it, personal goals and math goals. And then the great thing is with Pop-It Light, you can go back in and edit it again. So this first box would be our multiplication factor for this 9 weeks. Then you come back from track out or break, and you would say, I will complete 100 multiplication problems with less than 5 errors this track. So you're continually adding, continually letting them set goals. The first time you do it, I would model it, and then maybe the next track let them adjust it and create their own rules. You also create their own rewards based on this control. So we'll run through this. I actually got this from Ms. Kessler, iPad app review checklist. She gives this to her students to help them determine if they enjoy the app. General info and operation app is easy to use. It does not crash. It is grade level appropriate. She gives this probably 4th and 5th graders mainly more. Talk about app design, which is the most that you like least. She gave this to me in a piece of paper. I used on my phone, this thing called Doc Scan. It's just a way to download a PDF without having to like scan it. You know, go to the computer lab or whatever and use the scanner. So it's just a quick template that you can use and set it. She sent it to me, or she gave the sheet to me. I doc scanned it and emailed it to my computer and uploaded it to this president. So doc scan, definitely good to have. If you need to have, let's say you're going around and you need evidence for a meeting that you're about to have with a parent about how they're struggling with a certain content standard, or maybe you want to show some successes in your classroom, use the DocScan app, scan the document, upload it. It's good to have files based on your students' work, so this is just a quick, easy way to do that. This is my favorite, or one of them.
Hey, welcome to Class Dojo. Class Dojo is a tool that makes your classroom more fun, and it helps you become a better student too. Your teacher will set up Class Dojo and make a list of actions to try to do this year, like participating, helping others, and staying on task. When your teacher notices that you're doing these actions, you'll receive dojo points. And at the end of the day, you can find out how you've done. You can see what you're doing well, and also learn where you need improvement. The best part is this: you get your very own avatar. We'll give you one to start with, but you can make your own avatar once your teacher gives you your secret code. Log in at home using your secret code, and you'll be able to make your own avatar. See how you did in class, and see all your friends too. We hope you love using Class Dojo, like millions of students all around the world do. Now, your teacher will tell you more about how you're going to use Class Dojo in your classroom. Have fun!
So,
Quick question.
yeah, I'm about to pull up
Did
too.
it say that you use the easiest components and that kind of thing to every child by the end of the day?
Yeah. Watch. Super easy. Super easy. So I used this in Burlington, and then I carried it over to Bailey's, and we've kind of picked it up and integrated it even more. In my case, we rotate classes. Like I teach second grade, I teach third grade math, but we're all second graders. So we made a daily second grade class. I used to have my own personal class in my old school because I had the same kids all day long. So I click it. You can check reports and edit buddies, or you can say start class. It pops up the kid and who they are, and you can customize whatever. Let's say Bella, she was either helping others, she was on task, participating, she was showing persistence in a problem, she was quiet in the room or hall, responsibility, teamwork. You can adjust it to whatever needs that you want. Same with the negatives. So we've already done our points this week, so I can play with it. So Bella, let's say she was participating, she just gets a point and adds up. Her parents can go home and check her avatar and look at her report. And it'll give them a ratio, like 75% of the week this week, they were following instructions and showing teamwork, showing persistence, showing different things. And then for the 25%, there's a little bit of disrespect, which Bella would never do that. But you can adjust it and customize it for each kid or each classroom in your personal way. But it's just a good way to promote collaboration and communication between the students and I.
The
So,
comments are all made, you're just clicking on them.
yeah,
Did you have to go in and make the comments originally? No.
they give you some, like participating was there, but like quiet in the halls, I think we created. But you just type it in. I mean, it's like, you pick an icon and type it. It takes less than 30 seconds. So we created a class list. So whenever you're in the bathroom, or you're like going to the bathroom or in the hallway, I can just walk around with my iPod or my phone if I had to, and give them points. So that I don't have to worry about carrying point sheets around, because those things are annoying to me. And they get lost and things like this. And parents sometimes don't ever see the point sheets when they go home.
You just carry your iPad around. Do you carry a mini or a regular?
This is mine. So I used to have a regular one.
Which do you like?
We're trying to decide whether we want to do
Annotating on screens, I would say regular accessibility and lightweight. I mean,
How often do you annotate on screens?
engine creations, annotate anytime you're, like, unless I'm typing, which typing's easier on a bigger one too. I would say the students, smaller students, do better with minis because their hands are small. It's just a preference of yours. I mean, I can let you play with this at some point and see. Okay, so yeah, it depends on the age and what all you're expecting them to do. Concept apps, most of the time, they're just clicking icons. So, now I have accessibility the entire second grade, so even whenever I'm out in the hall and I see another student in a whole other class, I can give points or take away points even when their parent or their teacher's not there. So it keeps everyone accountable and collaboration and communication between the parents and students. And then for QR codes that go right along with this, so end of the week, I have students, and let's say if you receive more than 6 points for this week, come up, I'll give you a QR code, you scan it, you might get one of these prizes. So you might be line leader for the week, or you might be wear your favorite hat. We got this teacher paid teacher.
Yeah.
Teacher paid you. Yeah. So she gave this to me the other week though. And so we're going to roll it out. I want to put QR codes on a spinning wheel like you do in Wheel of Fortune, and then let it be like that.
So, yeah, that would be great.
That's what I want to do. But you can customize these too. They don't have to be, small desk. Yeah. Create your own QR codes. So I'll save these last few. There's not many more. We'll save them for tomorrow because we got a lot going on. And I know you don't want to get to lunch. Another session. Oh, well, I'll go with it. I hope you found this beneficial. If there's any questions at all, I'm more than happy to help you. Put it on Edmodo. I'll have that app, that account open for at least a couple months before we do another session, another conference. And if there's any questions or specific things, I can come help you. If you're in by school, draw something, maybe come by and help you as well. And help get things started. So, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.